Well, good afternoon, Angela. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon for afternoon tea.
Thank you for having me.
My first question to you is, what was your childhood like?
Quite a happy childhood, I would say. I think my first memories of being a child is opening the front door, probably about 2 years old, and running to meet my dad on the way home, on his way home from work. That's one of my first memories. But quite a happy childhood, at home till 5. Then I went to school, had a cat called Whiskey, who I absolutely adored. And at the time it was only me because my brother had been left in Jamaica. So I had my mum for 5 years all to myself. And then, well, not completely 5 years because my sister came along 2 years later. But I just remember having that concentrated time with my mum. So quite a happy childhood. I've got an older brother, and that's the one that came from Jamaica. And then I've got my sister, and then mum had twins the last time round. So there was lots of fun, laughter. We had our own band, climbing trees, all kinds of exciting things that kids get to do. So yeah, happy childhood. Strict parents, but we had fun.
So you said you were your older brother was in Jamaica.
Yeah.
So did you come across with your parents and leave your brother behind?
No, I'm born in the UK.
Ah, you're born in the UK.
Yeah.
Ah.
My dad came over first, and then sent for mom. And mom left my brother, I think, when he was about 9 months old, and came over to the UK. So Paul was born in Jamaica and stayed with my dad's mom until he was 9 years old.
I bet that was strange, getting to know your 9-year-old brother.
Well, we didn't know about him until 2 days before we went to the airport to collect our brother, and we were told we had to share our sweets with somebody else, which went down like a lead balloon.
Yeah.
So, I think that was our first understanding that we had a brother. It could have been we were told that we had the brother, but never really understood it until we were actually physically in the car driving to the airport to go and pick him up, and our parents were explaining exactly what was going on, which we weren't impressed with. Me and my sister, but the boys were still babies at the time, so they have no recollection of Paul not being there in their life, but me and Vanessa did. Yeah, so that was an interesting experience.
Yeah, that it was. Yeah. So you started school, and did you enjoy school?
I did and I didn't. So when I remember being taken to school at 5 and being absolutely mortified that my mum was going to leave me, and I cried and cried, and she had to stay. And then I loved books as a child, and walked into the classroom, and there was this bookshelf absolutely loaded with books. And my mum then became invisible, and I went over, picked up a book, and they have to, I do remember as clear as day, my dad having to buy a bar of dairy milk to prize me out of school at the end of the day because I didn't want to leave the books behind. So I love school for the learning, and I think I had a relatively good school experience. There's 2 occasions that I didn't enjoy school. I didn't enjoy maths, but that was down to the teacher that I had, and I did not like computer studies. So life nowadays is all about computers. I did not enjoy it, and I give away my age. we had floppy disks and those big reels with the magnetic tapes on. So we were learning all about computers and binary codes and DOS and CDOS and all of that. Not that I didn't enjoy that part of school, but yeah, look, school was great. I enjoyed going to school, coming home,
Yeah.
with both in your bag and getting dressed in the alleyway so your parents don't see what you're wearing at school and stuff like that. But yeah, school was fine.
Mm.
Yes.
So you never had any problems at school?
No. What do you mean by problems?
Bullying, getting into trouble with the teachers, or any problems like that?
Um, I did experience bullying, but my mum put a stop to that immediately. She went straight round to the young lady's mother, and it was sorted out that evening. And me and this lady are now really, really good friends. We've been friends since that day. My mum just stopped it immediately. Um, in terms of bullying, no. I had a nice clique of friends and seemed to sail through school with no problems. My school report, believe it or not, would say that I was too quiet and I needed to speak up. So a lot of people find that really difficult. They say, what? And I've still got the reports here to prove that. Angela needs to speak up. And then when I used to go in the chatterbox phase, Angela needs to knuckle down and concentrate. So I excelled at anything that was creative in school. I loved needlework and art. I even enjoyed home economics.
Mm.
So anything that was really, really creative and that I could do, I excelled in all of that, all the way through from little school all the way to big school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you go on to university or further education, or did you leave school and go into your first job? What did you do after school?
I wanted to be a nurse when I left school, and you had to wait till you were 18 before you could become a nurse. So my parents decided that I had to go to college. And that's what I mean about my parents are really, really strict. They sort of set out your life until there's a point where you could say, no, I'm going to make my own decisions. So I went to what we called college then, higher further education. And I did business studies. I did a diploma in, what was it called, a BTEC or something. And from that, we had to go and do 2 weeks work experience in at a local firm. And I ended up at a firm of accountants, and they offered me a job. So much to my mother's delight. And I got offered a job, and part of the deal of that job was that I had to sign the contract to say that I would do 2 years further education in some form of business related studies, which they paid for. So I was at college for 1 year. I should have been there for 2 years full time. Got offered this job, but they paid for me to have further education for another 2 years. So I went on and qualified in business studies, which was, we did law, we did anything to do with businesses, learning how to operate, run an office, the ins and outs of business. So and I started off as a general office clerk, answering the phone and taking the bank to the bank and getting sausage rolls for everybody. So that was my first job. And I felt so rich for my first pay packet. 100 and something pounds, I remember.
So how long did you stay with that company for? Was that your first then full-time job with that company?
I stayed with I think it could have been 7 or 8 years, and then the wanderlust part of an adventure side of Angela that doesn't rear its head that often, but when it does it in style. And I decided that I was going to go and get a job in London, and handed in my notice and said, I'm finishing the year here and then I'm going to get a job in London. And my parents were horrified because there was no plan. It was just, this is what I want to do. And my sister lived in London. So I said, can I come and stay with you for a couple of days? I'm moving to London. And I moved to London. Well, I went to London for a couple of days and landed a job at Ernst & Young within 3 days and started that. And it just seems as though my path then, I've missed out the bit about nursing, haven't I? So when we got to year 2, I went off to check out being a nurse. So when I was 18, and found out that I didn't like certain aspects of nursing, which was blood and anything highly messy. And I didn't like the fact that the lady that I was looking after in that 2 weeks that I was making my mind that she passed away, and I was so upset. I was absolutely devastated. So I decided that nursing wasn't for me, and I wanted to look after people in a totally different way. Hence the reason why I went into like a secretarial role.
Yeah.
Started looking after my bosses and directors that I worked for. So, and it paid better at the time.
Mm. So you went down to London, you got this job.
Yeah. And I loved it. 7 fabulous years of, I worked for Ernst & Young. I was promoted twice, ended up as an executive assistant for a tax partner, had my own team. So I had 5 people in my team. And it, for me, when I look back on all the jobs that I had, that was the best job, because I was working as hard as I was playing. I was traveling, so we were going off on trips all over the place. So I did a lot of my traveling in that time because I was earning such good money. And I had the most wonderful bosses. They were just amazing people. And of course, working for a firm like Ernst & Young, I really did get to learn about business. And I met a couple of famous people as well.
Good. So when did you decide then to go self-employed?
So let's see.
How did you get into the coaching arena? I mean, you have done such a lot in such a short time, really.
It doesn't feel like it. So fast forward from Ernst & Young, was there for about 7.5 years and ended up feeling really, really poorly and couldn't put my finger on what was going on. And, you know, doing tube rides and having to come up at the next stop to find the toilet, be sick or whatever my body wanted to do that day. And came home to Rugby, went to see the doctor, and they diagnosed me with IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, which meant that my body was under some form of stress, which I wasn't aware of, but it was probably because my lifestyle was a little bit wild at the time. And I had to make a decision whether I stay in London or whether I come home. And I had a house in Rugby, so I decided that I'd come back home. I had enough money not to work for a little while, and start to have a slower life. So I ended up coming back to Rugby and landed a job at one of the top companies in Rugby at the time. I didn't feel like that after working there for 2 years, but and I ended up leaving that job and I'm just trying to make sure I've got all the storyline in place. And I ended up with going to work for National Air Traffic Services, which was a fantastic job. And that was another 7.5 years on a holiday camp. But the stress was getting worse, and I wasn't fully aware of what was going on. But this fascination with what I call the mysterious side of life just started to take over. I wanted to know about angels. I wanted to know about the afterlife. There were so many questions. I mean, I would have been coming up to I'd have been early 30s, and I just started questioning everything. And the universe has a way of responding to you when you're ready. And we had a driver who used to drive all the flight equipment and stuff to because I worked at a radio station. And I was fascinated by this guy because he was calm. He just had this really attractive energy. And I want to be like that. Well, I want to be like that. So he used to sit and talk to us all the time about his life and his journey. And he told me to read 3 books, I think it was. So it was Jonathan Siegel, The Alchemist, and The Celestine Prophecy. So, of course, me being a book lover, ordered all 3. Couldn't just order one, had to have all 3 books. And I read these books, and they're just like the story of someone's journey into enlightenment. And that was it. Hooked. Absolutely hooked.
I think we've frozen then a bit. You got to absolutely hooked.
Absolutely hooked. Hang on. It keeps coming up with messages on this is BT in the middle of the afternoon. Yeah, so I was absolutely hooked on everything that I was reading. In The Alchemist, he starts off this journey of searching for himself, searching for answers, and they're always within. Our answers are always within. And it was the same with Jonathan Siegel. It's accepting himself as a seagull, but that's the metaphor. And what was the other one? The Celestine Prophecy, and that was that wild adventure of them going to find the scroll of life. So I was hooked. I just wanted to learn more and more about that. So I started delving into angels. I did all kinds of weird and wonderful things, going for weird readings and all this, and coming out of there going, what a load of nonsense. People talking about levitation. And but in the middle of all of this, so this is why I say that the universe always responds to your cries for help. I went out one night. We went to the Belfry, and really strange things were happening that evening. And it's only now, so many years later, that I realised that it was time for me to start that journey of me finding, not even, I don't even like to say finding myself, because we never really lose ourselves. All we do is we have a load of crap from life that buries the essence of who we are. So driving back from the Belfry, 90 miles an hour in the 3rd lane, I hear a voice say, take the car off the road. And I thought it was one of my girlfriends being really, really stupid. And this voice said quite urgently, do it now. And a lorry flashed to let me move over, and there was sparks coming out the back of the car. And the piston rod, as I did the emergency stop, the piston rod went through the block of the engine. And I went into complete shock. But for some reason, I we entered the house before going out that evening, and I picked up a top that had an inner fleece, and it was a summer evening, and we were out half naked because you're going to the nightclub in the hope of meeting somebody, and of course we're stuck on the side of the road, and the temperature just dropped, and we were like, we're going to freeze to death. And I said, oh no, I've got coats in the back of the car. And they were like, well, why did you put coats? And I said, I don't know, something told me to put a coat in the back of the car. And I went into what they call the beginnings of reactive depression, which means that I'm not necessarily reacting to those circumstances. It could have been something that happened years and years ago, and my body was saying, time to deal with it. And I ended up having 3 months off work, and that was when I just started that search. I started to ask for help, and I ended up with a counsellor who is now an extremely good friend. She's one of my best friends, and I ended up having to go and see her, and I was with her for 2 years, and she was adamant that I should be a counsellor. She was absolutely adamant. She wouldn't let it go. She was like a dog with a bone. And she gave me, oh, it's downstairs now. I'm just thinking, where's my book? Where's my valuable book? She gave me a book called The Powers Within You by Louise Hay. And I took this book and I read it from cover to the back. And I started implementing the things that Louise asked you to do in there. So inner child, forgiveness, visualization, started speaking better to myself, and started building this relationship with myself, and things just started to change in my life. I mean, I had this fantastic job, brilliant boss, traveling all over the UK. I never drove my own car. I was always in another car. I was going on great holidays, but there's just something inside me that wanted to do something else. And people were saying, you should be a counsellor. And in my own self, I didn't want to be a counsellor because I didn't think I was intelligent enough to be a counsellor. Shows you nowadays it's not all about intelligence, it's about emotional intelligence. And I just kept on saying, no, it's not for me. And I worked behind the bar, and I had 2 people come in and change my mind about that direction. And they said, if I hadn't spoken to you, one of them was going to commit suicide, and the other one said his marriage would have broken down if I hadn't sat and listened and given him wise advice. Just giving him facts. I didn't think it was wise advice at the time. And I thought, okay, then I'll give in and I'll go and train to be a counsellor. So my counsellor came with me to make sure I signed up. And I signed up, and I did that, and I did sociology and started looking at psychology as well. And that just started, excuse me, that started my journey. And I was, in a way, I was right about being a counsellor. It wasn't for me in terms of my personality and the fact that I want my clients to participate in their healing and not just go round and round and round asking the same kind of questions. So I kept on asking, saying there must be something else. There must be something else that I could be doing. And the universe responds again. And I go to a health show in Birmingham, and I'm sitting waiting for my friend who's having the photograph where they take a picture of your aura.
Oh yeah.
I've forgotten what it's called. And I'm sat there minding my own business, and the lady walks up to me and said, you should do the Louise Hay training. And I'm thinking, oh, where's that come from? And she said, I don't know why, but something's just told me to come over and say that to you. And I said, oh, I want to do the training, but it's in Orlando. and it's going to cost about £4,000-5,000 to do it. And she said, no. She said, they do it in Birmingham. And I went, really? So she wrote on a piece of paper the details. And I was so excited because when I went online, it was starting on my birthday. So I went, that's the sign. And then see the price and think, how are we going to do this? And my mom just believed with all of her heart this was the direction. So she said, I'll pay the deposit and we'll find the £2,500 somehow. And I was like, it's a bit crazy. So we did. I paid for it, filled out the reams of stuff that you have to fill out, and was accepted. And about 4 days later, my mum got a phone call to say the insurance company is trying to get hold of Angela. Is that your daughter? And she said yes. And she says they owe her some money. And my mum was like, this is the answer. And she calmly said, oh, could I come and collect the letter? So this was the house we used to live in. And went and collected the letter. I rang the insurance company and they said, the courts have told us that we owe you some money from compensation, because I had one of them funny mortgages at the time. And I said, oh, how much money is it going to be? And he said, oh, it's about £3,000-4,000. And I was like, really? So my course was paid for.
Brilliant.
I didn't have to worry about it. And doors, once I did that course, the doors started opening. And that was in 2003. And to finish the course completely, you have to go and find out about starting a business. I still don't know why to this day, but they said part of the requirement was that. So I made my appointment with Business Link, turned up late because I got lost, no sense of direction. And I went, because I was late, I had to stand up and introduce myself. Everybody else had done it. So I stood up and went, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late, and just blurted out. I said, I have no intentions of starting a business. I am here because I've done this course. I'm now qualified to teach Louise Hay's work. And blah, 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 blah. And the guy said, could I have a word with you afterwards, the facilitator that day? Oh my God, I've done something wrong. And at lunchtime, he asked me if I would consider putting on some of the Louise Hay's teaching to the entrepreneurs, because they need to look at looking after themselves. And I heard myself saying yes, even though my whole was no. And part of that was I have to start a business. I have to create this business and create some coursework from there. So in 2003, I started my business, which started out as Positive Perspective, but because Angela was totally disorganised, I didn't register the name, and somebody else launched their coaching practice as Positive Perspective. So it was then called Active Inspiration, but I never clicked with that name. And then my best friend came up with this name because I drive her mad, because you're always inspiring people, you're always coaching people. She said, why don't you just call it I Love Inspiring? And that's where the name came from, as simple as that. We spent years looking for a name, and she just said that. And my brother was going back for a name. So that's where the name came from. But I'm operating under my name now. So
It's amazing how we transgress, isn't it, from
yeah,
one thing to another, although we're still doing basically the same thing. So that is when you became the managing director of your Love Inspired company. And also in your bio that you sent me, you mentioned that you were a co-author of a book. And you kept that quiet. I didn't even know about that. So what's the book called?
It's called Confidence Confidential, and it's a collaboration, what we call perspective on confidence.
Ah.
So my chapter, is it chapter 3? I think I'm chapter 3. Yeah. So that there's my chapter, and it's called Waymaker, and I wrote about the time where I ended up with nervous fatigue, which is there's
Yeah.
3. And I believe in journaling. I love journaling. If I'm really, really struggling with working something out, I start writing so that I can start to unravel. And I took extracts from my journal during that very, very chaotic time and wrote about how journaling helped me to regain my confidence and regain and turn my life around. And I did that in 7 months. So I was approached, asked if I would contribute to a book, and because on my dream board I put I am the author of the #1 best-selling Amazon, I thought, oh, this might be a way of doing it, and we did become #1. And we did it in that year, just that same year it happened.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And if people want to get hold of that book, where can they get a copy from?
Amazon. It's on Amazon, and it's been compiled by Marcia Spence. I don't know whether you know Marcia. She runs a book company, and she helps authors helps them with the writing and the proofreading. They're launching books every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So how did you get your nickname of the Inner Working Queen as well?
I've got 2 nicknames, the Inspirational Goddess and the Inner Work Queen. So basically, it gives you an idea of what I do with my clients. My clients tend to see me and they are so focused on all the outer stuff. And what I help them do is to go inside and start to work from the inside out so that they get the long lasting results. But it's also, we are carrying so much hurt and so much discord and everything is going on inside. And a lot of the times, what is going on the outside is a reflection of what's going on the inside. So they have to do all the stuff that they hate doing, forgiveness, the releasing, the letting go, and confidence comes from the inside. It's not an external thing. A lot of people think it's external, but it is an internal thing. And you never lose your confidence. What happens is we just get a layer of crap on top of it, and it sort of suppresses it. Louise Hayes used to say that we're born confident, and it's only life that starts to affect that confidence. Babies' confidence, they know how to cry for help. They know how to cry for attention. They know when to smile. They've got the confidence to do that. No one's told them not to do that. So most of the work that I do with my client is the inner work. And whenever I ask for feedback, they always say, you get me to do the inner stuff. You're the inner work queen. And the inspirational stuff is I tend to share my story, my journey, to encourage them that, we can be in a pit, but there is a way out of that. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I have to keep saying that to myself sometimes. Yeah. COVID has tested me in that direction.
So how can the group help you with your work? Is there anything that we can do to help and support you?
I haven't really thought about that because I'm so focused on getting this coaching program out. I haven't really thought about anything. I mean, I've just got to get this coaching program out there, and which will help people. But in terms of things, I don't know is the answer to that one.
Okay. So if you lived your life again, would you change anything? Would you do anything differently, do you think?
I think the only thing that I would do differently is all the personal development and the self-improvement stuff that I know now, I wish I knew when I was 16. I think that's the only thing. Your experiences in life are what help to build you as a person. They help you with your purpose. So I wouldn't take any of those experiences away. If I was standing in front of God and he was asking me, I'd say I prefer not to do that one. But they've helped make me who I am. So they shaped me into the person that I am. And I certainly wouldn't be able to be as good a coach as I am if I didn't have the life experiences that I've had and gone through and overcome in the way that I've overcome. So the only thing that I would change is knowing this information a bit earlier.
Yeah. So do you think it would be useful to have this information available to students maybe at high school?
It's I think it's important that we get to teenagers before they get polluted by the media, because a lot of our self-image, our self-esteem is affected by what we see externally. And I mean, I'm old enough to be able to stand back and say that's a load of rubbish. That person's been airbrushed. She's wearing so much makeup. She's starving herself to death to look like that. But we believe what we see because we see everything in pictures, and we make our decisions from images, and we think it through in images. We believe what we see. So if we can get to the youngsters as quickly as possible, it gives them that ammunition to be able to make better choices for themselves, instead of those choices being dictated to them by social media or the media or somebody else's belief of what success is. Because if you've got a really good positive self-image and high self-esteem, you're not going to be affected by those things. Me as a Black woman, we've ensured that our nieces and nephews have the empowerment techniques and stuff quite early on, so that they are making better decisions for themselves, and they are not falling into this horrible rap stuff that's out there, and believing that you have to go out, half naked and all of this stuff. But I'm digressing in that in that direction. It is so important. I mean, I love it when I see videos and you can see the mothers and fathers getting their children to speak really positive words over themselves. I just think it's just so important. So the sooner you can get it to youngsters, the better.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Is there anything anybody else wants to ask Angela?
I would like to ask Angela a question. Angela, please. What is your aims for the next month, year?
So my aim for the next, I would say, going up into the end of the year, is my program's launch is to actually make it live and be happy with the content, instead of being the Miss Perfectionist that I am and going in and reshaping it all the time. Just put it out there. My mum used to have a saying that you start where you are and you can add to it. I wish I could just fall into that. So that is my aim at the moment. Not sure how 2020 is going to work, because for me to go online is really, really uncomfortable. So it's something that I have to get over. So doing something like this it's not as easy as you think. I find it easier to do face to face. So it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and just doing it. So that's my aim for the next, how many months have we got left? 3.5 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question as well. What sort of people are you looking to work with, and what's your aim?
What's my aim? So most of the people that I work with tend to come to me because they've got some purpose that they want to fulfill in life. And it could be, so I've got an example of one young lady I worked with for about a year. She wanted to be a nurse. It was her lifelong vision to be a nurse, and she ended up getting married, having children, got to 35 years old and felt that her dream was slipping away. So she came to work with me, and we worked on her confidence, and we looked at putting a plan together and how she could achieve that. And if you go on my website, there's actually a picture of her in her graduation outfit, and she's now a nurse in an ICU ward in it's not Coventry, it's in that area, around that area. So most of the people I work with do have a purpose. They are driven by something, and they're very, very similar to me. They're highly creative. They express themselves in a creative way, and they are nurturers. They want to look after other people. They're driven by that. So my aim is to work more and more with people and help them to start fulfilling their purpose, but from the highest expression of who they really are, not who they think they should be.
Yeah.
And that is my purpose, and that has been my journey, is to accept who you are and really, and when I say celebrate who you are as a person, because your DNA is unique, your fingerprints is unique, and when we get into that, it's so powerful.
Absolutely.
It's so powerful. So those are the people that I work with.
So do you work with mostly women then, or?
Yeah, but I've worked with some amazing men, surprisingly, and it's normally their girlfriends send them, their wife and their girlfriend send them to me.
That's
So a bit uncomfortable, but yeah, I've worked with about 5 amazing men who have gone on to achieve really, really great results, and it is all to do with going inside and dealing with the stuff they do not talk about. It's, start thinking, because when you say positive thinking, they roll their eyes, or I've had one man sit the whole time like this, and then by the end of the coaching session, he's like, oh, I think I can enjoy this. So yeah, I work with men as well, but I genuinely work with women.
Okay. How long ago did you say you did your training around the coaching?
The coaching, I qualified into 2005, because it took 2 years. So I did the Louise Hayes first, then I did the certificate, then I did the diploma.
Fantastic. That's
So
brilliant.
15 years. A lot of things in 15 years, I'm telling you.
I'm sure. But that,
Yeah.
life is life, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? Well, thank you very much, Angela, for joining us for afternoon tea today.
Thank you. I was the only one drinking my tea.
I had my tea as well.
Oh, you got your tea. I didn't see anybody else drinking that. Ah, okay.